Hey everybody, sorry I was looking at my phone there for a minute, but so welcome into another edition of Make Every Second Count Live with me, your host and international award-winning Make Every Second Count speaker, Jeff Marconette Jr. Now, I am so pumped up for tonight, but I ask you if you would please share this video out. Invite all your friends to watch it because you never know who me or my guests are going to be able to touch and possibly even save their life. So, I also ask you if you would give us all kinds of likes. So, thumbs up, hearts, frowny faces, cry faces. Heck, you can even get mad at us. I don't care. Just help us trick the algorithm on one of any of the social media networks that I am on. So, with no further ado, I would like to bring to the stage Mr. Steve. Hey, Steve, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
That is great. So, first of all, I have to point out that your voice is just like a DJ voice.
Thank you very
You
much.
sound like
Former
you're
radio
busting
guy.
through my radio.
Former radio guy, currently living in a little town in southern New Hampshire, enjoying life as a professional speaker, do keynote speeches, and also a visualization coach, and created a little program called Vision Board Mastery to help people learn how to set their goals.
That is amazing. I know that there's a lot of people out there that could definitely learn how to set new goal or set goals because a lot of people don't set goals and it's hard to shoot for something if you don't know it's out there.
Yep, exactly.
So we have Ben Bruce in the comments and he is from Lagos, Nigeria, and he says, "Hey Steve, you are welcome aboard." So,
Awesome. Thank you so
yeah,
much. I appreciate that.
yeah. So, Steve, I know personally because I was in a severe car accident. I spent 2.5 months in a coma and 3.5 in the hospital. I wasn't supposed to be walking right now, but guess what? I certainly am. So I know that there are a lot of things in life that try to hold us back, and we have to grow through things. We don't just go through things, but we grow through things in order to get to the other side. So while I am inviting some people on my phone, has there been anything in your life that you have had to grow through?
Absolutely. When I was 11 years old, I wanted to be a radio DJ, a stand up comedian, an author of my own books, and a teacher of people, but not in a classroom. And when I was 24, I got into my dream job of being on the radio. I had a friend who urged me, who believed in me more than I did. And I worked 15 years worth of hours in 10 years and burnt myself into the ground
Wow.
mentally, physically, emotionally, everything. I was just falling apart. My first marriage was falling apart. And I bailed out of my radio career without a full time job or a plan other than a little part time DJ hustle I had on the weekends. So I went from having my dream life to blowing up a radio career, getting a divorce, and at age 35 being $62,000 in debt. And the sad part about it
62?
all, $62,000, because I
Yeah.
wasn't paying attention to where the money was going and I wasn't paying it off in any rush. So I had to crawl home and live with family. And it was, I get a couple of years on you. So I don't know if you remember the old Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons
Meep,
from
meep.
Saturday mornings. Yeah, beep, beep. I pretty much, like Wile E. Coyote, I strapped on my Acme Rocket roller skates and drove my entire life right off a cliff.
That's not good. So
No.
how all right. So how did it make you feel losing all your everything that you worked so hard for? How did that make you feel?
Like the biggest loser on the planet, that I had the golden ring in my hand. I had everything I thought I ever wanted. And I got so stuck and so burned out that I thought the only way was to just quit and walk away from everything. And I wound up sitting in the ashes for about a year, just trying to figure out what I did. And I put pen to paper a lot and I did a lot of soul searching. And it turns out it's the greatest thing that ever could have happened to me because the me you see now is the happiest version of me there's ever been at age 56. My favorite version of me so far.
That's amazing. So I know that there are a lot of people out in the world today that aren't happy, aren't aren't being the best version of themselves, aren't being the happiest version of themselves. So, do you have any suggestions for those people? I mean, how can they find happiness?
The first thing that I suggest to people is go sit somewhere quiet. Leave your phone in the car or at home, turn off all things electronic that could describe you, and sit somewhere that doesn't have a lot of distraction or people you know around. Get a notebook and a pen and just start writing out everything about your life right now that may not be perfect. And the people I work with, this is going to sound overwhelming to people, but this is where I suggest they start. Evaluate where your life is right now in your physical health, your emotional well being, the emotions you feel most often, your closest relationships, your core values that guide everything. Are you living with integrity with your internal rules? Your faith and spirituality, if that's an important part of your life, your connection to people in a real way, which has been tough on people the past few years, in your work, in your money. And if you start to look at that whole picture of your life, and maybe if you're a numeric person, a scale of 1 to 10, how you doing in each area? Or if you're more of a creative and a visual like me, I would write down where my life was at. And what that can do is give you some clarity on where you are. Because so many people are just so overwhelmed, going, "Oh my God, it's not perfect," based on what other people told me success is all about and supposed to be and being happy. Whew. Take a breath.
Yeah,
Just get out a good sketch of where your life is right now, because that'll give you the starting point that you can build from.
yeah, that is amazing. So, in the comments, guys, put a 1 through 10 where your life is right now. 10 being you're living your best life, and 0 or 1 being that you're not living your best life, that you're struggling and you're not the happiest person in the world. So, rate your happiness or the happiness in your life from 1 to 10. I'd love to see that. So we thank you so much for that, Steve. But I have to say that so you evaluated your life, everything in your life, and how did you do that honestly? I mean, if I tried to do that, I probably would fib, make myself look better on paper.
Yep. I was actually the opposite at the time. I was very hard on myself, and I was very self-deprecating. I kind of always was. I would always be putting myself down. So I was my harshest critic, and I was not very nice to myself back then. Even according to the journals now, if I go back, and thank God I journal. I've been journaling since I was in my early 20s. And I look back now at how I spoke to myself and how I spoke about myself, and I was a harsh critic. Core values, I've always operated within my core values. Those were high. My faith, talking to God, I'm good. I'm not part of any religion, but me and God, we're good. All the other stuff I was struggling with. I wasn't sleeping well, I wasn't eating well, I wasn't exercising, I was overweight at the time. My cholesterol was almost a perfect bowling score. I was broke as hell, didn't have a full-time job, had blown up my marriage. So, I had my faith and my core values were like the two normal sized spokes of a wheel, and the other ones were all little nubs. So I wasn't, if you think of it like a wheel, it wasn't rolling forward very comfortably. I just kept like a flat tire. So, but I was really harsh on myself at the time, and that was a trend that actually continued until about 2012, until a friend called me out on how badly I was talking to and about myself, and that was a big shift for me.
Wow. So how did you accept yourself more? How did you become more accepting, I guess?
It started by doing acts of kindness for other people. I was just so nasty to myself. I just decided to put a little love in my heart and go out and help other people and do even simple acts of kindness. Yeah, put love in your heart. And once I got out and started connecting with people, I started going to networking events and I would make people laugh there. And I was part of an organization called BNI, Business Networking International, and I became an area director here in New Hampshire. So I would go out and I would teach people things and coach people through things even before I became a speaker and a coach. So it adding value for other people made me feel better about myself because I did have some value. Even though when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see it. I could see the impact that I could have on other people's lives when I cared enough to just put away that nastiness towards myself and push the good stuff outward. And that was the very first steps to me eventually becoming a speaker and becoming a coach and actually doing it, sharing my message and not someone else's. But the kindness has been a lifesaver for me and it continues today.
That is amazing. So I actually have a friend named Tammy Joy. Well, her name's not really Tammy Joy, but it's Tammy Lane, and she goes by Tammy Joy. But she did 100 days of kindness.
Yes.
So she offered things up for 100 straight days of things you could do to be kind to people. Now, you see, random acts of kindness is kind of one of my things that I like to do, and I do it kind of for a selfish reason. Now, while I am making that other person feel good while they receive the whatever it is, and then they also receive a boost of endorphins or anything like that, you are also receiving that boost in your brain.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you feel better.
Yep.
And when you feel better, it's amazing. But there's actually scientific proof that a person that witnesses this random act of kindness, they get a boost too.
Hmm.
So when they say that random acts of kindness are like a snowball going downhill, it's true, because that chemical endorphins that they get in their brain increases the likelihood that they will do something kind for somebody else. And when that happens, more people do it. And when that happens, more people do it. And it's absolutely amazing. Like, I used to go out to like a business, and I would just stand there and hold the door for people. I wouldn't
Yes.
even be going in.
Yep.
I'd just be there holding the door. And
Yeah.
they're like, "Well, don't you want a gun?" No, I just holding the door.
Oh, I love that, man. And I do. Oh, we're so similar in this. If I see a bunch of people coming, I'll stand there, and eventually one person will say, I can hold the door so you can go in. And I always just look. I go 1, 2, 3, 4. I go no, because after 10 people, I can legally put out a tip jar here in New Hampshire. So keep it moving. Now they're laughing. I'm laughing. People are coming the other way. They're laughing, and all of a sudden, I'm having a better day. And a lot of times when I go out to intentionally do some kindnesses, it's because I'm having a frustrating day. And there were a lot of those days back then when I was putting my life back together. I would just drive into town for 20 minutes and commit as many simple acts of kindness as possible. And my favorite one is the one I call shopping cart rodeo, meaning I just go rescue abandoned carriages without getting mad that they were left there. Because some people say, oh, they're lazy. I've met people who were, I mean, literally dying in front of me, people who were living barely with cancer, people with MS, people with fibromyalgia, people with every variety of difficulty you could imagine. And I would just go and rescue it and say, at the very least, I'm keeping this carriage from denting someone's brand new car today.
Yeah.
And it's cardio to me. You know, in my record, I have long arms. My record is 6 carts at once, stacking them all together, bringing it back. I tried 7 once, and I stopped quick, and one of them took off. So I said, okay, I can only reach 6.
Yeah. That's cool. So, is a random act of kindness or an intentional random act of kindness, as we were talking about there, is that something you would suggest for other people that aren't having the best day?
Absolutely. And do it from the expression and with the intention of just doing something nice for someone else and leaving it there. You know, not for the glory, not for the pat on the back, not for the TikTok video. Hey, look, I'm helping a homeless person here. Just do it because it's amazing to give. And like you said, Jeff, we get the endorphin rush. Hopefully that person gets the endorphin rush. Anybody watching gets a rush because we never know where the ripples go. And there's always someone watching. So there are days I do something, and if I happen to see somebody else looking around, smiling or kind of pointing, I just give them a thumbs up and I say, that was so much fun. I hope you'll go out and do something too.
Yeah, that is awesome. I Wow. So that is great. So what else can you suggest for a random act of kindness? I mean, I'm wanting to pick your brain here.
Yeah, yeah. You know something really fun that I've done a bunch of times, and it wasn't even my idea. About, oh gosh, 13 years ago, a local newspaper reporter reached out to me and said, how many acts of kindness can you commit in one day? I said, I don't know, 100. She said, you want to go do it? I'm like, really? She goes, yeah, let's spend the day together and you just commit as many acts of kindness as you can and we'll keep track. We wound up doing 50. One of my favorite ones was actually suggested by an 18-year-old cashier at a grocery store. When he saw us paying for the person's groceries behind us, it was a church group and they just had a bunch of bananas. That's all they had for their weekend retreat was bananas for breakfast. So we offered to pay for them and they accepted. And the young man at the register said, oh man, that was so cool. Hey, you know what I like to do for an act of kindness? And I looked at the reporter and said, quick, grab your pen. He said, I don't like having change in my pocket. He goes, it just kind of weirds me out. So every time I get a quarter, I go out to the front of the grocery store and I leave it on a gumball machine so a little kid could get a gumball.
Oh,
It
that's
cost me a
awesome.
quarter. And some days, if I got 4 or 5 or 6, he goes, I put one on each machine. And then by noon, I go back out there and they're all gone. And I know 6 people, they had a joyful moment that day. And he goes, and I feel good about that. So I've been
That's
doing that
great.
ever since. I love that one.
Yeah, that is awesome. So, I there's some other things that I do. So when I go out and I see somebody in public and they have like red shoes on, I'll compliment those shoes,
Yes.
or I'll compliment their glasses, or I'll compliment their hat. It's not, sometimes I don't really even like this stuff, but I'm boosting that person,
Yeah.
and that makes me feel good, but that also makes them feel good,
Yeah.
and that is just amazing to me.
Yeah. I love having conversations like that. And I am by nature. Now, I used to be a stand up comedian. I was on the radio. I'm a speaker. I'm an introvert. So it's not people just think, oh, you can be the life of the party everywhere you go. I'm very measured, but I do love to have conversations with people. And like what you said with the red shoes, if I see somebody wearing a really cool jacket or a hat, I'll just walk past them and I'll just say, that is the coolest hat I've seen all day today. Me, I couldn't pull it off, but you, that's awesome. And I'll
That's
walk right past.
great.
And I see the smile. And then we may run into each other a couple aisles later and they'll look at me and they'll blush a little bit and they'll smile and they'll just give a thumbs up or they'll point at the hat. And I go, I remember you. Still cool. And it's those moments because we never know how someone's day is going. And just sharing a little bit of love like that, or a smile, or just a kind word in a world that's just so bent on being crazy and drama and yelling and screaming and fighting, and just share some love, man. It costs us nothing at all,
No,
but the
it's
rewards are
so
massive.
it's we can get away with doing all kinds of things that don't cost us anything, but they gain us everything.
Yep.
Like they're going to gain us joy in our hearts, and that is amazing in itself. I just don't the way I feel when you have joy in your heart, you don't need anything else. You it's like the cup analogy. You can't fill from an empty cup, but you can if your cup is full. Now, I'm not going to fill this cup up because it's kind of dirty. It's been sitting here for probably a year and a half. But so it's just I don't know. I'd like to fill my cup so I can fill other people's cup. So if I'm making my day better, I like to make other people's days better in that aspect. So how all right, you said you got divorced from your first wife. So what was that like?
That was really difficult because as a person who worked in the communications industry, I was not a very communicative person. And when it comes to conflict and stuff like that, I wouldn't confront it. And I would just bury it down, bury it down, bury it down. Frustration crept in. We didn't communicate enough. I was working an hour and a quarter from home. So I would sleep at the radio station or at my boss's house 2 nights a week. So I wasn't even coming home every night. And I also had a DJ business on the side, which meant as soon as I got home Friday night, I was off DJing a wedding Friday, Saturday, and sometimes Sunday. So we weren't seeing each other a lot. I was exhausted. I was fried. I was frustrated. I was not communicating. And I was just burying all this poison inside me and it was just blowing up. And we never actually fought. We just didn't communicate until it finally just blew up all at once. And I saw my opportunity to just walk away and I did. And she did too. We both just decided. And that was it. And
Yeah,
that was a big, that was a big failure for me. Another reason to hate on myself because here I was, this person who's trying to be all positive, this person who was very well known in the community as far as name recognition, not fame, but name recognition. It wasn't an ego thing. It was, I got to share my life with a lot of people. And
yeah.
here it was crumbled. And it was not a life that I even wanted to think about, never mind share with other people anymore.
So, do you find it beneficial when you share those times where you feel like a failure? You're not really a failure just because you failed at something, but do you feel that reaching out to people and talking about the time you failed is beneficial to you, to them, or both of you?
If it's the right people, it can be beneficial. Now, if it's what Jack Canfield, who's one of my favorite authors and coaches and speakers, he calls it the Ain't It Awful Club, meaning that if you're just going to go and vent, Like, oh, my life is terrible. Here's what's wrong with my life. And somebody goes, you think your life is bad? Listen to mine. If it's a bunch of people just talking about trying to have the most negative life, that's not a good way to share. But if you're talking to somebody whom you trust, whom you respect, who could give you an honest opinion of what's going on and maybe some suggestions of how to work through it, that I recommend. But if it's just you venting and complaining with other people who are just going to vent and complain, that I don't recommend. That's like handing everybody a shovel and saying, hey, you know what? Why don't you dig that hole a little deeper
Yeah.
so you can't
So
see the sun?
I've also heard, I don't know who says it, but they said misery loves company. So
Yes.
that's kind of the same thing you're talking about there.
Yeah,
Now, do you
exactly.
know who says misery loves company?
No, I've heard it many times, but I honestly don't know who originally coined that phrase.
Yeah, I don't either. But I want to say that Robert just said in the comment section that he recently had jaw surgery. He can't really talk or eat solid foods. He's currently very irritated. So we hope you the best, Robert. I know it's tough, and I had a broken jaw at one time, so I can relate to not eating solid foods.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. I know that I asked you to fill in at the last, well, I don't know when, but a while ago, and you were great. I appreciate hearing these things that you have gone through, and I'm glad that you have come out the other side and are living your best life now. I just want to help everybody do the same thing in their life. So that's what this show is all about. And I definitely want to say thank you for coming on here tonight because you have definitely added value. I love talking about the random acts of kindness because that's just near and dear to my heart. And I I need everybody out there to do me a favor. Before you leave this room, well, a couple favors. Before you leave the room, don't forget to hit that like button. Just hit it like 5 times. Just do that for me. That'll be your random act of kindness for the day. And then I also need you guys to please give me a comment. Just just put kindness or something in the comments because that'll also be another random act of kindness that you've done today. And then the third thing is this one will include you. You guys have to make every second count. You might ask why. And I have to say that you never know when those seconds are going to run out on your one life. So go out there today and perform 5 random acts of kindness. And hitting the like button 5 times doesn't count. That counts as one. But I'll let you off the hook by getting one of those there. So I thank you guys so much. Remember, we're here every Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, where we try to help you live your best life. But I want to say thank you so much, Steve. You
My
really
pleasure.
helped me out tonight. You
Thank you
have
very
a
much.
great night. Everybody out there, have a great night, and I will see you next week.